to finally awarding the, someone to actually run it, they were telling us, well, it's $2,000 a month, that's what the rent's gonna be. But in my head, I'm going, okay, well, I guess that makes sense, because we're paying $40,000 a month. We're never going to get $40,000 a month for that. I don't think the voters really understood what they were voting for. I don't think that they understood it. Because when you talk about private business, that does not make good business sense, right? It just doesn't. There's no way you can ever justify that. But that's not what we're talking about here. And so I'm sorry to go into that lengthy conversation, but it is frustration for me. It is always frustration for me, because our job was to take this money, these bonds, this money from these bonds that the voters voted on, and turn it into a building. So now we're stuck with, honestly, we're stuck with the building, and our decision is, do we continue to run it like a family fun center? Or do we do something different with it? It doesn't really matter. We tech every month, whether the building is or whether it's not occupied. We could charge $6,000 a month for rent, but we're still losing $34,000 a month just on paying these bonds. So it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. We're never, even if we charge the $24,000, is that what it was? We're still losing money every month. It doesn't matter. We're always going to lose money on this building, because it was never meant to be a building that was going to pay for itself. So we have to be clear about that, because people need to understand that we're losing money either way.
Up the golf course, do we do that as an RFP with Grant, or do we do it as an RFQ?
Right.
Because he runs, I mean, and that was originally, the intent was this is to be set up exactly how the golf course is. And then, so, I mean, how do we get around the, essentially the anti-donation at the golf course with us supplementing him?
Because we could maintain, everyone talked about today.
The original.
Today, I'm depositing $4,000 because that's my different percentages, and we have different percentages and all this stuff. We take a different percentage of the restaurant, we take a different percentage of the greens fees, take a different percentage of that. Yes, obviously that covers his expenses, because then what he keeps, we record as an expense.
How did when Denny, and I don't remember how Denny set it up, because they had a very similar situation where they contracted it out to have it run over there as well. How did they structure their agreement?
I've never seen Denny's agreement.
I know they did structure it, had it for a little while, and then.
I did request their RFP for it, but I haven't gotten it.
And that was a number of years ago, and I think they still run it in-house over there.
But they didn't start out running it in-house.
No, they had an operator in the beginning for the first few years, ran it. I was just wondering how they got around the anti-donation and the audit findings and stuff on it.
So, and you're saying the original intent, I do know that you were on the commission originally when this started, and then you had that 4-year break. Is there anything in writing about the original intent, or is it just something that was talked
Well,
about?
it was talked about, it was pushed to the public that way. You know, originally, it was supposed to be built right where Alex is. You know, it's supposed
Okay,
to
but
be
that's
in the
not
center
what
of
was
town.
on the bond.
It's because of a former mayor who got involved in it and got it pushed out there. But the original intent was either at the old TGNY, I don't know if you don't remember where that
I
is.
do.
Or right here where Albertson's
staff estimated what the cost would be to repurpose that building?
Yes, we have, I'm glad you asked. Justin has the exact numbers, I didn't bring the proposal with me. It's under $2 million to repurpose the building.
How much?
Under $2 million, I mean, 260 for design.
Did you say 2 million or 100?
So, 2 million,
Okay.
under 2 million,
That might go.
260,000 for design, and I think 1.4 for actual renovation.
Okay.
Okay.
And how would those be funded? How would that be funded?
So, we have a tax that is dedicated to public safety buildings. We would also look for grants. We would put in an ICIP. So there is money for public safety.
But then we'll still have to go over the people.
If we repurpose the building, it has to go out for a vote because the voters voted on the recreation center. So to be clear, we want to go to the very beginning.
I remember.
It says a family recreation center, so it doesn't necessarily say the bowling alley, it doesn't necessarily say a fun center, it says recreation center.
The comments that I hear, I mean, I've got an opinion, but, you know, obviously each of us commissioners are up here to represent the people in our district and the city of Alamogordo, and I have had very few people, the comments that have been made to me, the city should have never been involved with this to begin with. But that's from people that are in business, the other folks that are maybe not running and operating their own business and understanding the dynamics of that and what the back end looks like and, you know, why a city shouldn't be involved with this. Their comments are, we want that fun center. And so I think that's what a lot of us sitting up here on the dais are faced with is you've got a community that supposedly wants this. They voted on whatever the measure was at the time and passed it with a 60% vote. And so it's tough to sit up here and make this decision, number one, but to do what's in the best interest of the community as a whole. I still feel like there's some information that could be dug up to explore some of those options for an RFP. Is there any ways to get creative? You know, if we're gonna dump, potentially there's other funding sources for a public safety complex, but none of that's guaranteed. Maybe it gets to a point to where there's, you know, the city's gotta move and it's gotta come out of city coffers to fund changing it into a safety complex. What's the difference in selling that thing at whatever you can get and shoring up the difference on what's due on those bonds and get the city fully out from under it? So I don't know if there's a way to look into that RFP and figure out, are there ways to get creative? Is there a way to have somebody that could lease that space, that could get access to a liquor license, that could potentially turn it profitable, that for a period of time, their lease is structured in a way that gives them a lower lease rate and you know, for the first 12 months, and then after that it escalates up once they get their feet under them to be able to start making some type of profit. I don't think that the previous operator was at all concerned about what he was gonna do to make that a successful place. He saw an opportunity at $2,000 a month for 35,000 square feet. He jumped on it, ran with it, didn't care, COVID hit, claimed that couldn't recover from that, and that's, you know, what led to him just shutting the doors. He never had an interest in making that thing a big grand place. I've been there, everybody in this room's probably been there, and saw the quality and the condition of things in there. He didn't care. And so if you had an operator that cared, I think that they could turn that around and actually make it something that's profitable, but they gotta be willing to get creative and think outside the box. So, I don't know, just my 2 cents.
And I think that's why option number 4 is also a reasonable recommendation, because that would be, okay, this is what you voted for, do you still want it, or do you want the city to repurpose it? Again, there's just all the options. Yes, sir.
I just want to say, I know that, I haven't heard, how people want to keep the fun center, so, I'm just gonna.
So over social media.
Well, the social media is not what
I've got people texting me right now that their comments are, how can we keep that fun center? So, I mean, there's people out in the community that want it.
I'm just saying
And to be fair, if you look at some of the social media comments, I've seen comments that say, let's just do something with the building, so I mean,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
balance both of them, you know?
yeah, it goes both ways, I'm not
And I
discounting
think
that.
that what I have heard that, the fun center, if it had been a little bit more centrally located, would have benefited, and it would have, been more accessible to all of the citizens in, Alamogordo. So that's what I'm hearing. And so when I had been talking to, some of the people, they said, it might be a good idea to start bringing things back where they're centrally located, where kids can have access to it, because I'm just talking about district number five. The highway to go and have a beer or to eat or to bowl. And most of the people that I know that are bowling, now, this was a bowling alley. None of the leagues are bowling at that alley, so most of the cost is being absorbed by the people who go out there. And, it was just my grandson and myself out there, and I think we bowled 2 games, and it was close, and I bought something for him, and it was $50. So I'm just looking at, like I said, I don't know what you all are, and I'm not doubting it, I'm just saying, I'm not getting that same feedback. And the feedback that I'm getting is that people want something a little bit more centrally located, where everybody can enjoy it, where the kids and, you know, the parents, or they don't have to drive out there on that highway. So I'm just saying, I hear a lot of different things other than what, you know, maybe, you and other districts are hearing.
Here's my issue, and this is, I hear what you're saying, but everybody is dismissing the fact that the movie theater is out there. And the kids are getting to it. The kids are getting, see, this is the part where I get frustrated, because I'm like, we're sitting here and this has been an argument. This has been an argument since they decided to build it. I will tell you, when I came on board, I was like, okay, so we're building it at Mesa Verde. It was never a question. But this argument about the kids can't get out there, and I'm like, then how in the world are they getting to the movie theater every weekend? Because it's literally right next door.
Well, I think
And I will tell you that my kids were raised here in Alamogordo, and I can't tell you how many times I drove to that movie theater and picked them up, and then I had to drive to the movie theater or drove to the movie theater, dropped them off, had to drive to the movie theater, pick them up again. That argument doesn't, I'm sorry, but it just doesn't hold weight with me, because the movie theater is right next door. And I assure you that every weekend those kids are figuring out a way to get out there and get back. Sometimes I partnered with other parents and they would drop them off and then I would pick them up, or vice versa. So that is not the issue. The other issue that I have with that is that the way that the Family Fun Center was built, it's not a rec center, it's a family entertainment center designed for families to utilize, not to drop your children off and pick the, that's never the intent of a particular, at least certainly when got the original commission, and I can tell you that in 2016, when we finally decided to build this building, it was never intended for a place to drop kids off and then pick them up later. I mean, that wasn't ever the intention of the building. It is, again, right next door to a movie theater that kids are dropped off at literally every weekend. I'm sure that, I don't have children that age anymore, but I'm sure that they're still dropped off at the movie theater every weekend and then picked up somehow. So, and as far as the price of it, and I want to go back to what Commissioner Paul said, I will tell you that when Jay Chun first came on board, literally we sat and he provided us, remember that? Was food. We went to school, you know what they have out there, that's where this man was from. I went to his facility in Los Angeles. I happen to have family in California. I went to his facility, I saw for myself what he was capable of. So I'm not sure that I agree that he didn't care. I do think that he cared in the beginning. I don't know what happened to him. I think he got a little too big for his britches. He got in a fight with his brother, who was the cook, and all of a sudden the food went downhill because the cook went away. But in the beginning, it was a nice facility. It absolutely was. And it was good food, and I looked forward to going out there and eating with my family, and it was a good time. In terms of what he clearly, what I can tell you is, I think that the general public, the families that will be utilizing that, I don't think that they are much interested in paying a lot of money for that. And unfortunately, in order to operate a facility, and I'm not saying that I don't disagree with you, because I would love to see it a family fun center, just because there was so much time invested in it. But I don't think that our citizens want to pay, like you said, $50. I can tell you, I took my grandson out there for his birthday, and it was him and 3 or 4 or 5 of his friends, something like that, and then the rest of our family members by the end of the night, and my husband and I paid for it. By the end of the night, I think we were at about $400, to be honest with you, between food and bowling and all of the other things. I think it was about $400. It's not cheap, it's not. And I think as business owners, everybody understands it's not cheap to operate a business, and that was back then. It's even worse now. So I really don't know what the answer is. But I wanted to address all those things, because I do believe that in the beginning Jay had good intentions. I just think that life got in his way, and you know, I'm not gonna get into all his personal issues, but he had a lot of them. And I don't think he anticipated those in the beginning, and I do think that those personal issues, you know, with him, but as far as all this other stuff, no, I don't agree with that. The movie theater's out there, the kids figure out a way to get out there every weekend.
We're getting a little off topic.
Well, we need to figure this out. We've gotta figure out like what we're gonna do with it.
Staff's asking for direction of which way we wanna head.
I get that, but if we don't cover some of these issues, and we just decide to go back out for RFP, we could run into these issues again. So I don't think it's off topic. I think it's important that we look at all of the pros and cons, and there were a lot of cons with that building when we went out for RFP, so.
Like I mentioned in May, when staff brought this to us before, you know, let's put out an RFP. If we have 2 or 3 different responses and we don't like them, we can always reject it and go to plan B, which is either sell it or bring it in-house. So, you know, logically, it won't hurt anything. I honestly thought that was the direction we're going. We were gonna put an RFP out, see what kind of response we had. And if we didn't have a response, then we did what we needed to do. We either sell or we bring it in-house.
So it's okay to spend $40,000 a month on.
We're spending it right now.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's okay to keep spending that.
Well, that's
Isn't
not the
this
point, though.
funded by
Back in
the,
May, we
property
asked them to
tax,
do
though?
this, and it hasn't happened, is the deal.
So we're not spending anything.
Say that again?
I mean, the residents of Alamogordo are
Yeah.
spending the money.
It comes from the
It's
city.
city coffers, aren't, I mean, in essence.
Well, I'm just saying, it's, you know, right now, when we're looking, we already know what the results are on the RFP. If we send it out, we're not gonna get what we need in order to keep that center going.
It was never intended to
It was never intended.
pay for itself.
$40,000 a
It's,
month.
it's like the rec center, I'm gonna use it as an example. We have to supplement that. It's a quality of life issue for our residents. We provide that for the residents, knowing that it costs us a lot more money a year to run it than what we generate.
But you
This is a very
that
similar
actual
deal.
data that says, with
Golf course is the same.
19,200 people, okay, the golf center,
It's the
the golf
same.
course too.
It costs us more to run it than what we generate.
But you didn't have that number out at that bowling alley. You didn't have it.
All I'm saying is put put the RFP out, see what responses we have. If we don't get any responses, then we know we need to go to a different direction. That's all I'm saying, so.
Well, even if we send out the RFP, we already know how much money we're gonna be losing every month. Because she gave us two, the top and the bottom part.
It doesn't matter, we're losing the money either way.
But
If we turn it into a fire station, we're still paying the bonds.
But it's more functional. It actually would save us money to
And
go
then
ahead and.
it would cost us an additional $50,000 for a special election, or wait 2 years till the next November, to the next election cycle.
Well, let's do it.
Doing RFP
You're
will.
spending $40,000 a month anyway. What is $80,000 to do an election? Or to wait?
Whatever the election is.
What if it doesn't?
I think it doesn't cost staff a whole lot of money to put an RFP out. If we don't like what we see coming in, we can always reject it and then go a different direction. It
Okay,
costs us
but
very,
that's
very
why-
minimal amount of money to do an RFP.
That's why I went over all that, because if we go out for RFP, that's why I said, no, we're not getting off topic, because if we go out for RFP, we need to learn from what's happened in the past with our prior, operator. We need to learn from, well, no,
Raising your
no,
voice
we
doesn't
need
mean
to
you're
learn from
right.
that, we've
That's
lost.
$240,000.
We asked 6 months ago to put an RFP out.
I get it, I'm not saying don't do it, I'm not, that's not what I'm saying, what I'm telling you is if we do that, we need to be much more careful this time, because clearly, and I'm telling you that the operator that we hired was not, he was a good business person, I don't know what happened to him, but the due diligence was done, and so I'm not sure what else we could have done. So if we go out for RFP again, we need to be prepared, and we need to make sure that I wanna say do it right this time, but it felt like we did last time, so that's my only concern. I'm not saying don't do it, I'm saying that my concern is that we're gonna be right back in this position again if we
could
don't.
be very, very lucky and get an operator like we have at the golf course that's been here for 20-some years.
We could,
And it has a passion. Has it been longer than
Yeah.
30 years? He's been out there for 30 years. He has a passion for running the golf
I
course,
get it.
and it's a very, very nice facility.
but I've sat down with him, and he's not, well, I don't even wanna go, I'm not gonna go down that road. I'm gonna just say that.
But-
So I just kinda wanna, just to be fair to staff, because, just to be fair to staff, it was to bring information back. Because of the pending litigations, we weren't sure what our options were, so just to be fair, staff wasn't just sitting there like twiddling their thumbs trying to,
You
we
guys
had to.
already drafted some sort of an RFP?
Yes. Barb.
RFP, be one or the other.
Yeah, me and Barb were working on an RFP, it's not finalized.
I think if you do it in the past, if they do it as an RFQ, then you have the operators, they come in and they say, here's our qualifications for running it, and then we can go and negotiate with whoever has the highest qualifications to run the facility for us. So it'd be a very, we could do it either way. That's what I would personally like to see. If we have anything that looks flawless, we reject everything and we either put it up for sale auction or we look at. That's the only options we have.
I mean, cause I've heard the same thing like Nick said. I've heard that people want something. That's what I hear. Not, yeah, I've heard people talk, oh, it's a firehouse now. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
I haven't heard firehouse, I got an email from somebody that said that, I guess the buzz was that we were turning it into city and county offices, and I don't even know where that came
Well, I
from.
also heard that we're turning into a strip club too, but.
Oh, well.
Besides that, I mean, I'm
I'm
just
sorry, I
saying.
am vehemently against that.
Oh, yeah, I'm just saying, it's been out there.
That makes sense.
It was, so.
I feel like that's bad juju, I don't know. Okay, so all I'm saying is, I don't have a problem with it, and if this is what the citizens want, then this is what the citizens want, but it's consumer driven, right? So the only way it's gonna work is if people wanna pay for it, and we do not have control, just so we're clear, we do not have control over what an operator charges. So we can go out for RFP or RFQ, we can hire an operator, but we cannot put in that contract, you're only allowed to charge this month, so you need to figure out how to make it work.
I agree with that, in the same sense, but it's not cheap to go to the movies.
Again, I don't
I
have.
mean, so, and to say that it costs too much because of this, I see people spend $200-300
I
to
get
go to a
that.
concert in Albuquerque,
But
with
you
another
can't-
$200-300 on top of that for a hotel.
I
room
get
at
it,
that
but
night.
you cannot make somebody
I agree.
patron, or what is it, you can't make somebody utilize the Family Fun Center, and all I'm saying is, it is consumer driven. And so we just need to be aware that part of the reason it fails is because people don't wanna pay for it. And it is expensive,
I
it's
think-
going to be expensive.
I think qualified operators are gonna do their due diligence though, and they're gonna do market studies, and if they can't find that the demand's here, you're not gonna get anybody that submits anything to an
Totally
RFP or
agree
an
with you.
RFQ that goes out, and so I don't really see the harm in putting it out there to just test the waters. It's short term, it allows us to fill out and see if there's
I
any
don't,
interest.
I don't have an issue with it, I would like to, I wanna see it succeed, we spent a lot of money on it, it's not, I'm just, maybe I'm a little gun shy, but I only mention that because Commissioner, or Mayor Pro Tem McDonald made the comment about how much it costs, and I've heard that from a lot of people, I've seen it on social media, and I'm simply saying that we all need to be aware that you can't force an operator to charge a certain amount. So we need to be aware that it is consumer driven, and whether it succeeds or fails, it depends partly on the operator and how well they operate, but it's also depend on their willingness to utilize the facility and to pay that price. That's all I'm saying.
And we have to look at all of the citizens, not just the ones who have the money that can go out. People that want to go. Everybody.
Yes, but-
Everybody wants to.
But not everybody can go to the movies.
But
I mean,
somehow-
it's, I mean, it can't really be your driving factor, is you can't afford it, you can't.
But you wanna make it affordable for all of the citizens.
We
But
can't
we
make it
can't,
affordable.
we can't do that, that's
Affordable,
what I'm
that's
trying
not
to say.
the topic of it.
So,
Yeah.
if
The
I'm
issue
on-
at hand here, can I ask, is it possible, in addition, whatever the commission decides to do this evening for giving staff direction, but is it possible, if it's the RFP route, can city staff also get some numbers together as far as what does it look like to run this in-house? I think being able to present that info to the public of, this is how many positions we would need, this is what the payroll costs are gonna be. I don't know if, the previous operator had provided any, just detailed or, high-level expense numbers of this is what electric, what's it gonna cost to actually run this thing? But so that all options can be weighed and exhausted before trying to go to some other route and pivot to do, a public safety complex. I think that having that information and then, sorry, 1 second. And then also as far as for considering to repurpose it, what are the true costs gonna be? Because we can say today that it's 1.5 million, and we turn around and this project doesn't come to fruition, and now we're at 2.8 million or $3 million to do what, the intent was at the time when the commission voted on it, if that's the case. And so,
So, just to answer that question, we did get an engineer, a natural engineer that works on our project, so the cost at the 1.4 million is the cost today.
okay, can we get a breakdown of what that is then, as far as across all the updates that are looking to be or proposing to be done in terms of adding bays for trucks in there, spaces for offices, spaces for courts, whatever other stuff, I can't remember what was listed on there.
I think
So,
Commissioner
I think-
Paul, he's kind of right on the top of it, you're almost killing two birds with one stone there. You're gonna get the RFP numbers, and then you're gonna get the in-house numbers, and bring it back to us kind of all at the same time, and we'll kind of know both options.
So
And
you
then
want the actual RFP that is gonna go out?
Or
I guess, let me ask this question, do you want us to actually go out for RFQ and then have bring it in-house as a plan B?
My interest in the in-house stuff, and I don't mean to speak for Commissioner Reardon, is people, if we don't as commissioners ask for what are the details of each of these options, then how can we best decide? And you guys have presented some info, but I don't know what it costs this, you know, from the city's perspective to bring this in-house. Okay, we need a lot of employees, we can't hire employees now. Well, what is the numbers, the data that backs that up, that makes it hard to achieve,
So
right?
I know that just on the salaries part, it was about 300,000 a quarter, I believe, with the salaries and the benefits, if I remember the tax rate, that was just for the employees. So that includes the beverage servers, the waitressing, the bowling alley, all of that, that was about, and it fluctuated, of course, depending on how busy it was, but I think we averaged about 300,000 a quarter for just the salaries piece of it.
I'd like to see that info, and, you know, like I say, the RFP, RFQ doesn't cost us anything to put it out, and just a little bit to advertise it, see who responds. You know, if we get some national operators that respond on it, you know, what's it hurt? It doesn't hurt anything to ask.
So I, kind of along with Commissioner Reagan, I think that would be a good option to just actually put the RFQL, RFP, and then come back, here's what we got, or here's not what we got, and we also can do this. Because even just because there's an RFP or RFQ out, that does not mean that you have to accept it. So if that's the direction, I think that would probably be the best option.
If we brought the RFP in, we get somebody that responds to it, and then you have the numbers for the in-house. That would be the only way that we can dictate what is charged, is if we brought it in-house. And the city runs it, then we could do it, because we're nonprofit, so we don't have to make a profit at it. And then we could keep the cost a little bit lower if they brought it in-house. I see a lot of social media posts, about, hey, when's this gonna open up? I do get a lot of phone calls about that, hey, when's the lower county gonna open up?
And just so to be clear, like when you were in litigation, so this is when I think we had a executive session a month or two ago. That's when we are like, okay, we feel very confident in where we are, so this is why we are able to move forward. We're not through the litigation, so we're not just leaving it there because we don't wanna do anything. Just to make that fair and on the record, there is litigation, we are trying to work through that, but we do feel confident in where we're at on that to be able to do one of the 5 options.
I don't have any problem with going after RFP. I don't think it's a bad idea. Again, I'd like to see it succeed. I don't know about that in-house thing. We can't even fill all the positions we have. So that one kinda, but whatever, I mean, the issue is gonna be if we say, okay, we're gonna take this in-house for sure, we've gotta make sure we can hire people to run it, and that makes me a little
So we will
nervous.
try and get an RFP or RFQ, we'll work with Barb and Evelyn to see what's the best route to go. Hopefully by the end of the year, first week in January, so we can get some more information quickly, because like I said, we were waiting, we feel good, we can move forward. Does that sound good to everybody?
I want to say one thing. I've been trying to say something. So I am a bowler, so I don't know if everybody knows that.
That's your golfer.
I do everything. You know, the league secretary actually approached Mr. Chong, whatever his name was, about having leagues out there, and he said absolutely not. So he was approached, he denied any leagues. And I will tell you, there's a lot of people that would bowl leagues here in town because they can't get on the base. The base has, I believe, 4 or 5 leagues a week, and there's 20 lanes running, 16 to 20 lanes, 10 people a lane, and they all pay $15 a person every night. So.
And then, but I heard the base was well, I think, if I remember right, Colonel Ledford was going to do something, I don't remember what, but he was going to make it accessible to all the leagues.
So,
But I don't.
you have to have base access.
No, but
So
he was gonna give them base access.
you have to pass a background check.
You can't be a felon.
Hey, listen, I can't help that part.
So, when they passed that deal, they had every lane full, and then they came in and said, to be on the base, you have to have a background check, and it was almost cut in half, right off the bat.
You see a lot of kids leagues too.
Ouch.
Absolutely, and And when an owner says, I don't want your business, that's a problem.
Yeah, well, and it wasn't supposed to be, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah,
I
so-
don't even wanna talk about it.
I just- And everybody out there wants that one side.
Yeah, no, again, I don't disagree, if we wanna go out for RFP, I think we should try that first, because that was the original
So that will be,
intention, I guess.
that will be, what we'll do, like I said, we will bring both of those almost simultaneously, we'll put out the RFP, whichever one we decide to go to. And then bring back what we have or haven't gotten, and we'll try and get that here.
Does that need to be in the form of a motion?
No, it's just direction.
No,
Yeah,
it's not a
just
motion.
direction. And then at the same time, I'll look at the reports that are, I'll try and get a hold of Debbie again, and then we'll move forward from that point. So hopefully in the next 45 days, we'll have something out there.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Okay. We're gonna move on to item 8, consider an act upon approving the construction of a new natatorium with scrub structure. Linda is here. Sure. It looks like that's happening. We're gonna take a break and then we'll move on to item 8. Well, I'm used to being here past 8:30, right? Okay.
I'm sitting here and I've got my hand red, I'm like, wait.
A new natatorium with sprung structure. We have lots of people that are going to talk about that, so.
Well, we don't all need to talk, but we're here to answer questions. Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, Acting City Manager. We're here again to, well, actually, we're just here to ask approval for the new natatorium with the sprung structure. I feel like you should have, I don't know, a ream of paper about that deep on all of this information.
Since the proposal just passed, obviously, the 4 million, where does the other, was it 8, 7?
So it's the,
Six,
well,
I guess, six million.
it's the tax dedicated that we will go out and get, you know, similar to what we're gonna do for the water, we'll go get it bonded.
Yes, so we have, our, financial advisor, so when they ran the numbers for us, we had them run it at 6, 15, and 12. At 15 years, 20 years for both of those, 6, 15, and 12. So we have the $4 million in cash, basically. So, my suggestion would be to look at the funding for the 12. So if we do a $12 million loan with the $4 million cash, that gives us $16 million to design and construct the natatorium. So if we do that at the 20-year debt service, that'll give us about $920,000 a year that we'll have to pay in debt service. The gross receipts tax that was rededicated is budgeted this year to come in at $1.1 million. Over the last several years, it's been 1.24, 1.75, or I'm sorry, 1.175, 1.14, 12 million, we feel that we'd be comfortably able to cover that debt service, and that we would then have a little bit of excess for, other things. So, that's kind of the options we have. The 15, if we did the 15 and added the 4 to it, that's a little bit out of our price range. But that would also give us 19 million, which I think is probably more than everybody here is kind of interested in. We've hovered around, that, 15 to $16 million price tag. And then of course, we did the $6 million one, and we added the $4 million to that gives us 10 million. That was under the initial estimate, because the initial estimate was right at the 12. So, and then of course, if there's a different combination that comes up tonight, we can ask our financial advisors to run that. But I think the 12 kind of gives you an idea of what's kind of our upper ceiling on debt service.
What does that do to our bonding for debt service later in the future?
It doesn't impact, so it's not a bond.
Or-
It's because it doesn't count against our general obligation, because we're not paying for it with property taxes. So we still would have our 10 to 12 million dollars that we have right now in general obligation bonding capacity. We would still have that, and obviously it would grow as we did it. Because it's a dedicated tax and we're paying it with a dedicated GRT, it's not gonna affect our borrowing ability if we were wanting to go out and borrow something, like obviously the one that we're coming back with in December is the water rate loan is supposed, it doesn't affect that because that's user rates and this is a GRT. So, and it keeps that general obligation open.
What do we do in the event, you said that the tax rate's about 1.1, 1.2 a year. What do we do in the year that we have a little bit of an economic downturn and we don't generate enough to service the debt?
If we have that, then, we still are required to service the debt, so we have to use either another GRT or you would have to go out and increase the GRT rate. It's tied to GRT.
You said we were, for a 12-year, or $12 million for 20 years was 900 something thousand?
900, yeah,
A year?
it's about, it starts at 920,000, the highest it gets to is 923,000, so it
We got
stays.
about a $200,000 buffer.
Yeah. And based on what the financial analyst, it would give us about 230,000 excess revenue a year.
What if we borrow 10 million plus the 20?
I don't have that in my hands. We had only at that time asked them to do 6, 12, and 15, so I'd have to go back.
That way it gives us a little bit more of a buffer.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's gonna be less than, if we're doing 10 and having 14 total, then your debt service is probably gonna be closer, probably 8 to 50, 80, yeah.
One other question that popped in my mind is, because when I was a kid here, we always had 2 pools. The location that we looked at building it down here where the basketball was, what if we went down here, either in Washington Park or down here at the end, past City Hall down here right before you get to First Street? And I know this probably isn't on y'all, but it built it in a little bit different location.
Well, and I'll let,
Built into the existing.
I think we're talking about, because we were actually just recently having a meeting talking about the location of the pool, and so let's speak to that.
So part of the reason we're going where we are is to keep our recreational facilities tied together, so that if you have a family come, if you have some kids that wanna swim, and maybe dad and the sons or whatever wants to go play basketball, they can still literally park in the same parking lot and use the facilities. It's not like having to go halfway across town so the family can participate in different activities. They still have all of our our family recreation center, activities are still all kind of in a central location. So that's the reason for that, but we're also designing it in the eventuality that if we did expand on, swimming pool or decide to go with a bigger, recreational facility, say court space or whatever, we can add on to that sprung structure, trying not to compromise as I can.
That's the greatest
I
thing I've
think
heard all
that
night.
the question tonight is whether we're gonna go with a sprung structure or a brick and mortar. Is that what we're looking at right now?
So we put the sprung structure on there.
Okay. All right, so,
I did get to go to Red Hawk this weekend, but it rained. But it's actually a really cool building. It really is.
Did they have any
No, I didn't even get a chance because we were trying to just get out there and freeze, right? So,
Yeah, so when we did the field trip to Red Hawk, we actually got to speak to the person who manages and maintenances all of those facilities, and he was just a wealth of information. Commissioner McDonald, or Mayor Pro Tem McDonald met with us, and we had a lot of questions, and they had a lot of answers, and pretty much the takeaway was, they love that building. It's the lowest maintenance thing they've ever had. It was supposed to be temporary 15 years ago. And they built new maintenance buildings right next to it, the brick and mortar maintenance buildings. They've already had to repaint them, and they've already had to do roof work on both of those buildings, and those buildings are less than 7 years old.
I mean, I honestly, I didn't see any issues with the building. I didn't see any fading, no tearing, no, I mean, it's actually.
They're pretty neat.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we got if I remember right, the estimates, you needed about 14 million to do the facility, how you guys designed it, right?
So we need to get it finalized. Those were proposals, so once you approve the sprung structure, we will get the final design finalized, and then we have to bring it back once we go up for the loan. So yeah, as of what we had, I think we had about 14 million. I think that was right.
Roughly. And so with the sprung structure and, now that we're nailing down our definite numbers, that'll also, the sprung structure will allow us to potentially have a slightly larger pool. And that's, we're trying to get the most mileage out of our dollars and have the best longevity for the whole facility. So that's where we're at there. And with those are preliminary designs also that we submitted earlier. That was very preliminary. So now we can buckle down and really get the true design.
I read through, is it 8 lanes or?
So the current concept is one pool that has 8 lines, which will facilitate competition for the high school. It's got plenty of deck space for small team competition, but it also satisfies the need for our community that wants to do fitness in the pool, doing lap swim. So 8 of those, and then there's a small, it's not a river, but it's an opening that goes into a recreational area that's shallower, that'll facilitate and actually open up a lot more space for our little ones, the 8 and unders, that we can't really facilitate in our current. It kind of flows into a recreational area that'll have some built-in water features, and it'll facilitate more of the recreational side.
and it's just a walk-in area.
Yeah, it's just like an open area, it's all one pool, so there's just one system, one cost to maintain the pool versus 2 systems.
And then we don't have the need because it has the 0 entry, so there's no need for the ADA lifts because we can get an approved wheelchair in or whatever other devices that we needed. I mean, we're trying to make it as accessible for the greatest amount of folks.
Well, and we have children that are disabled. It makes it, at least they get to utilize it, so.
Yeah, this will be a much more accessible.
Because we faced that same thing when kids came down, of course, it was burned down, and when we went to rebuild it, it turned out that this was better after all, because then kids that were in wheelchairs, disabled, were able to use it as well, where the old structure, I guess, nobody thought about that, so. I like this, I think it's.
One more question on it.
Okay.
We put it up on the town hall.
You guys are gonna be like, you got 16 facilities that are kind of built, are those gonna be front structures as well, or are they gonna be a brick and mortar basement?
So, I'm not sure which part you're talking about. Are you talking about what houses the pumps, or are you talking about?
There was those areas, it looked like there was, I guess, I don't have the picture right here. Yeah, the locker
I
room
think
area.
in the original design, he had added like a brick and mortar facade essentially.
Kind of off to the one side.
Yeah, so we were trying to get the most mileage, and we can actually do all of that inside of this front structure. We don't need to have a special extra part of the building for offices or for locker rooms, because we can do all of that inside of that structure.
Just do one large building and then bring it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Not have to have weird science.
Yeah, and it creates, it's all one nice unit without having to have these, and that making your building look like it's had cups, you know.
What's everybody's thoughts on the dollar amount?
I think it's right on, and I would like to move to approve this proposal.
What amount? Are we gonna go look at having staff borrow 10 or borrow 12?
Their recommendation was if we go with this proposal,
So we're
then they'll bring back the figures and move on.
We're recommending, say about 14,000, 14 million.
More than 14
Well,
million.
we have an excavator and
Right. And we know 4 million of it is coming from how do we say that, the rededication
cash
of
out.
the.
We're looking at borrowing 10 million, correct?
Right,
10 or
that's
12.
10 million, yeah. Yes.
We will bring back a 10 and a 12 just because
Rates change, and that way we can show.
I have a feeling you're gonna have to have the 12. Then more than the 10. I have a feeling it's gonna be closer to the 15. Right.
So what you could approve a 14 to 16 million, that gives me the ability, I can go have him do. So that way we can see, that gives you to go to ESA and say, hey, we're gonna look at 14, 15, 16.
$10 million budget.
And then we'll just get us up.
Tell them you got 10 million.
Okay, so,
I would say no more than 6.
Yeah, no more than
okay.
6.
Okay. And motion passes 7-0. Congratulations to all of you, I know you're excited. Okay.
Good work.
Moving on to item 9, consider and act upon resolution 2024-70 requesting written approval from the local government division Department of Finance Administration for revised budget numbers computed as of November 19, 2024. This is fairly.
New business instead of the consent agenda is there are 2 out of the 3 revisions that I need to highlight for you. The first one is a correction to cash. While doing our first quarter reporting for DFA, we realized that the due funds from FY 2024 were not properly reversed in FY 24. So we had to go back and do some corrections, which required us to come back and correct our beginning cash. It affected 5 funds total. The biggest was to the general fund, which actually it was a plus to the general fund, about $1.1 million increase that cash, but then it decreased the cash. So it is a net 0. The cash number is still the same. It's just moving it in between the different funds. So that was a correction. The other one that I needed to highlight is we are reprojecting the salaries and benefits for all of the different funds. This is usually something we do as part of the final budget rollover in July, but we had a lot of changes that happened in July this year, so we postponed it, including we had a increase in our work, and then so and salaries
Girl, you know how I feel about it. I forgot to mention that earlier too, but anyway, okay. Any other questions? Okay, do I have a motion to approve item 9?
So,
A motion from Commissioner Burnett, do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Commissioner Robinson, can we put up the vote,